All right. Welcome, everybody, to our Living with Beavers webinar hosted by Snohomish Conservation District and City of Bothell. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you see it? Awesome. My name is Danny Dewar. I am the Outreach and Events Coordinator with Snohomish Conservation District. And with me presenting tonight is Ariana Winkler. She is the Habitat Restoration Project Coordinator and Living with Beavers Program Lead. And we are very excited to be presenting to you Living with Beavers tonight. I think there is a lot to learn, so let's get started. So we would love it if you have any questions to please put them in the chat. So I'm not sure if you have a Q&A section in your screen, but on the bottom, you should be able to see chat on the bottom. Do feel free to add any questions you have in there, and we will be able to answer them throughout the presentation. We will have times when we stop to answer your questions, and we'll try to make sure everyone's questions are answered. And if you do need closed captions, you should also be able to see the closed captions option on the bottom of your screen as well. So just go ahead and click that if you need them. And we are recording this class. So before we get started with the beaver portion, let's talk about what a conservation district is. So the Snohomish Conservation District provides free technical assistance and financial assistance to land managers in Snohomish County and Camino Island. We work with rural and urban residents to improve habitat, soil health, productivity, resiliency, and water quality through best management practices. And we provide pasture, weed, mud, and manure management, soil health, low impact development. So we build rain gardens and we'll go help with cisterns and bioswales as well. And we help with habitat restoration, riparian and working buffers, forestry planning, agricultural resilience, and urban agriculture. And we also provide youth and adult education. And many of these services are free. So you can check us out on our website and you will see all sorts of services that we provide as well. So we also provide services with Living with Beavers. And if you go to our website, you can check out some of these resources. And I've also got this QR code you can scan as well. Check it out. And I will leave it up for a few seconds so you guys can see or scan if you would like to read some of that. And with us tonight is Christy Cox, who is the Surface Water Program Coordinator with the City of Bothell.
Thank you, Danny. I don't think we're competing with any major sports or political debates tonight, so that's good news, but we know your lives are busy, so we do really appreciate you joining us tonight. My name's Christy Cox. As Danny said, I'm with the City of Bothell, and my job has two major components. The first is teaching Bothell residents how they can prevent pollution from entering our local waterways. And second, how to reduce your risk of localized flooding. And I know beavers can sometimes get a bad rap for some of their flood-inducing behaviors, but they usually do more good than harm for the environment. I've had the pleasure of working with Snohomish Conservation District for about 7 or 8 years now. And as Danny mentioned, the Conservation District does have a wide variety of programs. And because Bothell is split into 2 counties, our residents have access to 2 conservation districts instead of just 1. So even if you live in the King County portion of Bothell, through the magic of interlocal agreements and such, you can still take advantage of many of the services and programs that Snohomish Conservation District provides. So I won't take up more of your time, but I'll put my contact info in the chat, and I'm happy to follow up with you about any Bothell specific questions that you have. Thanks again for joining us, and thank you to Danny and Ariana for making this webinar possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. I just wanted to promote some events coming up. This week, actually this Saturday, we have our Orca Recovery Day this Saturday on October 19th. Orca Recovery Day is a day dedicated to saving the southern resident orcas, and it's a very important topic for all of us. So our event is going to be held at the Snohomish River Park in Monroe from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be a family-friendly event with all sorts of games, activities, food trucks, and vendors. So if you can, try to make it out. And also, City of Bothell is also celebrating Orca Recovery Day, and they are doing it at two locations. So, volunteer to restore habitat for Orca Recovery Day, and it'll be at North Creek Forest and in the former Wayne golf course. So, if those areas are closer to you, please go check it out. Please volunteer and get out there and help save orcas. All right. And as I mentioned before, we have Ariana Winkler with us tonight. She's going to be our presenter. She is the Habitat Restoration and Project Coordinator and Living with Beavers program lead. She's very knowledgeable about beavers and coexistence strategies. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to her.
Thanks, Danny. Yeah, thanks for everyone for coming out. I'm excited to talk to you more about beavers. I'm going to share my screen as well right now. Um, yeah, does that look good to everyone?
Looks good.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so we're here to talk about beavers, specifically beaver coexistence and living with them. And we'll go over it, but I really like to highlight up front that we do that for many reasons, but namely stream flow restoration and habitat restoration. We'll go over how beavers and you can provide those benefits. Um, like Danny said, I'm Ariana Winkler. I am the project coordinator for the district, the habitat team. And I just want to, when I'm not working with beavers, I'm working with our crews, our field crews that do a lot of habitat and ecological restoration. And I want to highlight them. I would, they do the hard work, and I am honored to kind of coordinate their work and also get them involved with beaver projects. Um, yeah, so and then part-time I also work for Beavers Northwest, so I have some good connections that way and get to see coexistence happening all around Western Washington. But again, if you're in City of Bothell, feel free to reach out to Snohomish CD and we should be able to help you. But we're here to talk about beavers. So we're here going to talk about who they are, what they're doing, why we should care, and how you can fit into all that. Yeah, so that should be good. I like to start off with just getting kind of a sense um of you all. Have you ever seen a beaver before, and if so, where? And you could feel free to put that in the chat if you would like. And then also why you're interested in this talk, so I can really tailor my talk to what we're interested in. And I don't know if I can see the chat or if anyone's using it.
It looks like right now it's pretty silent, but let's wait for a few minutes and see. Oh, there we go. We got an. Oh, that's Christy.
Samaras River, yes, I've seen some there beavers there as well, even during the day, which is interesting. Well, feel free to jump in there and answer those questions. Oh, that's great. Large wetlands in our property. Yeah, that's great. Beavers, yeah, probably will be attracted to that, and there's definitely strategies to live with them. Whitney, yeah. Creek Park is a great new beaver habitat. That is a really public way to view a beaver dam and how dramatic change can happen. We'll go over it, but beavers are a lot of places, and keep an eye out. We'll go over how to keep an eye out, and then also some doppelgangers. So if you thought you saw a beaver, maybe you didn't. But yeah, so this is the beaver. Specifically the North American beaver. It is the second largest rodent in the world and largest in North America. Its range includes most of North America, or most of United States and Canada. If there are water and woods, there are likely going to be beavers. Those are kind of the two things that they need. I've seen them in stormwater ponds and ditches. They are pretty resilient. So as long as they have some wood to eat and to use, and some water to live in, they're probably may get there eventually. I would not be surprised to see them. Some identifying factors of beavers um, really clue into how they are aquatic mammals and they need that water to live happily. So they have they have you can't really see their ears and they can actually close them underwater. Their back feet are webbed and big, and that helps them again swim in the water. Um, they have this is a really distinguishing factor that no other lookalikes have, but they have a flat rudder tail that helps them navigate the water and also store fat in the wintertime. They have two sets of teeth, kind of buck teeth, that they're orange, so that will be pretty distinguishable. And then most distinguishable factor is that they're big. Again, second largest rodent in the world. They can be 70 pounds or even higher. I think the largest one recorded was 120 pounds. So I like to think of them as medium dogs instead of, small little rodents because they're not very small. Yeah, so there are some other animals that look like beavers that inhabit a lot of the same environments. The nutria has those orange teeth and will be in stream environments, but it has a rat tail and it has a lot more whiskers, more prominent whiskers. Nutria are actually invasive and cause other harm to our stream channels. That sometimes gets blamed on the beaver, but again, nutria is not a beaver. We also have the native muskrat, which is again swim around. I've definitely seen a muskrat swim around and hope that it was a baby beaver, but it was just a muskrat. And they also have a rat tail, and they're going to be a lot smaller, just 5 pounds. They are native, and sometimes they will share. Beavers will let them into their homes and share with them. We have river otters. Those are pretty common and definitely fun to see. They're really energetic and playful. Those again are going to be smaller than a beaver, and they look different. They are more sleek, have a thin tail, and webbed front feet as well. So a little different and act a little different. Finally, I like to mention the mountain beaver. The mountain beaver is not related to the North American beaver at all. And they don't occupy the same spaces. The mountain beaver is a lot of times on upper slopes, but people will see mountain beaver damage since they like to eat roots and they like to dig a little bit, burrow, and blame it on the North American beaver. So I like to point that out and just say they're not related. It's not the North American beaver that you're worried about up there. Yeah, so these are a couple doppelgangers that are in our ecosystems, but aren't beavers, and you should keep an eye out. Again, the easiest way to tell a beaver from any of these is that they're going to be the biggest. They are up to 70 pounds. Another way to identify beavers, besides just seeing one, are a couple different things, including their chewed sticks. Beavers eat the cambium layer of wood, or the inner bark of the wood. So you will see beavers have cut down these trees. A lot of times they'll have an angled cut, and if you look closely, you'll be able to see their little teeth marks on the wood. We'll see some pictures later. Oh, like right here, this stick was eaten by a beaver, so it's bare of all of its bark because a beaver enjoy that cambium layer. And so if you see a denuded or kind of bare stick with an angle, it's likely a beaver did that and the beaver is around. Beavers are nocturnal, so it can be hard to see them during the day. You're kind of lucky if you see a beaver that happens to be wandering out during the day, but you can see these signs all the time and know that a beaver is in your area. Beavers also eat herbaceous vegetation. So their main food source is going to be that woody vegetation, especially during the winter time. But in the summer, when there's herbaceous pond lilies or spatterdock to snack on, beavers will definitely chew on that and eat it. So again, these are kind of just some examples of beaver cuts. Beavers chew down little branches, but they also will chew down big trees, pictured here. And that can take a matter of, months, or if they're really determined, they can cut trees down pretty quickly, even overnight at times. If you ever see fresh sawdust, like on that bottom picture, that means a beaver was recently chewing that. And yeah, you should keep an eye out for the beaver, or if you're worried about that tree, you should move quickly to protect that tree. And beavers do this all through those orange buck teeth. Those teeth are actually plated with iron. That is what gives them the orange plate to them. And as you can kind of see in that bottom picture, the orange part is only on the front. So the iron is in the front, and then in the back of the teeth are enamel. And since they have two sets and they're rodents, meaning they have continuously growing teeth, their teeth actually self-sharpen and enable them to cut down those large trees that we see them cut down. It's pretty cool, pretty crazy that they have iron on their teeth, but that is one of their special features. So again, these are kind of just some more signs of beaver chew. And I wanted to highlight that beavers eat wood, but they also use wood to build dams and to build lodges, which are another really easy way to identify beaver habitat. Dams come in a lot of different sizes, different shapes, different materials. These orange lines kind of all outline where a dam is. You can tell that, yeah, these dams can get really large and really tall. They can be made of sticks. They can be made of mud. They can be made of grass. I've seen just like wooden fence panels in it before. Really, whatever they can use and get a hold of, they will likely use in their dam. But again, they are chewing down those trees to get more material for their dams. Dams are really messy, so those are some really easy examples. But this is also a picture of a dam and beaver habitat. So a lot of times dams are not super easy to see. They can have plants growing on top of them and in them. They can be hidden within a large wetland complex. And that is one of the conflicts that beavers present, is that they create these messy wetland environments. But yes, the dam is in there, and that is actually great habitat. Another way to identify beavers is their lodges. They create dams to increase the water level, because again, they're aquatic mammals. They feel most comfortable swimming in the water and being near water. So they build dams to increase the water level, and then also to have a safe home. So lodges are also made of sticks or mud or really anything. They can be quite large. They can be in the middle of a pond, or a lot of times they're on a bank. But the real thing is that they have an underwater entrance. So again, beavers will raise that water level and then allow them to create this lodge that has an underwater entrance, so that only aquatic mammals like them can dive under and access their lodge. From the outside, it looks like a dome. But again, from underneath the water, it's a little home with a couple underwater entrances. And they eat there, they sleep there, they raise their young there. But most importantly, it protects them from their predators, and they feel safe since they don't have the threat of land animals coming to eat them, since they're safe in their lodge. Here are some more pictures of the lodge, and a picture of a beaver family cuddling together. Typically, beavers are in a family group called a colony. Typically it is a mated pair, and then every year that mated pair will likely have some kits. Usually it's about 2, but it could be up to 6. Again, they're rodents, so they do reproduce quickly. And those kits will stay with them until they are 2 years old. And so one lodge can have a mated pair, subadults, or 1 year to 2 year olds, and then baby kits that were born that year. So colonies can be pretty large, and pretty cute. Yeah, and going off of that, beavers are actually territorial. So once that kit reaches 2 years old, they will be encouraged to disperse and not be within their parents' territory. Another cool way to identify beavers is their scent. They have scent mounds that kind of mark their territory. So if you smell kind of a musky, oily smell, and you see a weird pile of sticks, that could be a beaver scent mound. And I would encourage you to look around for more beaver signs. That's kind of how to identify beavers and just the basics of beavers. Are there any questions at all in the chat or anything? Doesn't look like it to me. What is their primary diet? Yeah, so their primary diet again is going to be that woody vegetation, the cambium layer of wood, and they will use their iron-plated teeth to kind of chew around that wood and get that layer. The layer of cambium in a tree actually has all the sugars in the water, and that is transported up and down the tree. So they are trying to get at that. They also, again, eat herbaceous vegetation, but they are strictly herbivores. They don't eat any fish. They don't eat insects or anything like that. Cool. They do have favorites. They love willow in our area, Bothell. They love willow species. In other areas, they may prefer aspen. They like cottonwood a lot. There's some people that say they like fruit trees because it's sweeter. I'm not sure if that's real or not, but they definitely love willows in this area. They are choosy generalists, so they will eat anything, but if they have the choice of a willow, they will eat a willow. Blackberries and knotweed. Yes, I have seen knotweed and blackberry in beaver dams. Those don't really have the same cambium layer that they're looking for in the woody vegetation, but they will cut those down and use those as building material for sure. Which is, kind of scary because those are invasive. But we can't blame spreading invasives on beavers because they're already getting it from the environment nearby. So it's already there. So they're not really spreading it. Yes, feel free to ask questions as we go. I'll take these little breaks to answer any. We can move on to beaver benefits now. Yeah, so we know how to identify beavers, and now why you should care that they're there. Why should you be happy to see beaver signs? So beavers are ecosystem engineers. They can take a stream that's kind of narrow and straight and turn it into a big wetland complex. Again, here are all the dams that beavers have built and introduced to this environment. And that is really special. They are one of the most, besides humans, they alter their environment the most. And they have a lot of impacts because of that. And through building dams, increasing that water level, and creating more wetland and more wetted area for themselves, they actually do a lot of great stuff, including increasing that aquatic habitat, which is good for them, but it's also good for pileated wildlife like pileated woodpeckers are really going to enjoy that dead standing wood that flooded areas can get. That is also a kind of a downside of beavers is that when they flood an area, that area is going to change. It's going to change from a dry upland area to a wet saturated area. And some of the plant community may not be adapted to that and it may die. But I like to tell landowners that's not a bad thing. It's just a change. Wetlands are really important, which we'll go into. And there are ways to replant to better adjust to that new wetted environment. But even if plants do die, there are wildlife that really benefit from that, like the pileated woodpecker. And the increased pond also attracts waterfowl like ducks. Insects will really appreciate that dead, decaying wood and then also breed on top of standing water. With insects come their predators. So amphibians love the increase in insects, but they also benefit from the increased breeding area they have in ponds. And then fish also really appreciate that increase in insects. Specifically, beaver ponds are really important for I'm sorry, for fish that are resting. I'm blanking on the word right now, which is really bad. For not spawning, for fish that are just hatched and have are making their way downstream and growing big and strong to get into the ocean, specifically salmon. So beaver ponds provide them with more insects, more food, also slower areas to rest and eat, and then also more complex structures to hide from predators themselves. And then along with fish, if there's fish, there's going to be their predators. Again, beaver dams create good places for fish to rest, but they also increase fish. So there's and insects and other the food chain in general. So river otters will move into beaver ponds and really benefit from that. And also great blue herons also will be attracted to beaver ponds. So beavers build aquatic habitat, which is important for a lot of different species. And aquatic habitat is something that we have kind of shrunk down as we've developed our landscape. So aquatic habitat is important to build back up and to preserve. I just said beavers are good for fish, but it kind of seems counterintuitive how our fish, fish are moving up and down our streams. Aren't these dams barriers to fish? Well, actually, beavers taught salmon how to jump, and they have co-evolved for their entire life histories. So when salmon are big, they're moving upstream and they're able to jump over dams or go through dams or find ways around dams. When they're moving downstream, they're going to be small. So that's going to be easier for a small fish to move past, just go down a dam as opposed to going up it. So they have co-evolved and they work together to provide better habitat and water quality, and the fish, yes, do appreciate beaver habitat. Excuse me. In addition to increasing that aquatic environment, they are also improving water quality. Like I said, dams slow that water down, they stop it and they store it. When it is slowed down, the sediments, the pollutants in the water will actually drop down into the bottom of the pond. It will also interact more with its floodplain. So those plants are going to be filtering out a lot more pollutants and create better water quality downstream, which again is really important for fish. They also improve water quantity. So aside from just removing all those pollutants, they also recharge our aquifers and and restore our stream flow. So like we talked about earlier, stream flow restoration is really important in our urban streams, especially. Some of those streams can get dry in the summer, and when they flood or when it rains, when there's a storm event, they are really flashy. So they get really high and then drain kind of quickly. A beaver dam kind of fights against that. So it will slow the water, attenuate the water, keep it back, and then hold it for during the summer so that in the summertime, it can percolate through the dam and actually increase stream flow where there may not have been any stream flow. And the fact that that water is heavy, sitting there slowed down by that dam, will actually push water down into the groundwater and recharge our aquifers so that there can be groundwater recharge during the summer times for our streams that may otherwise go dry. So that is pretty important for fish, important for water quality, important for us who like to recreate along our streams. So just to summarize, beavers build aquatic habitat, they improve water quality, and they improve water quantity throughout the whole year. And this means more resilient ecosystems, especially when we're talking about climate change and the future that we are facing. So typically in Western Washington, our streams are pretty high in the winter with all the rain and all the surface water that is entering our streams. Then in the summer, there's less rain, so a lot of times they are snowpack fed and can get a lot lower. Some of them, like we talked about, dried up, especially once we've altered our landscape and maybe our snowpacks are dwindling. And then in the winter, again, it's higher. So with climate change, like I kind of just mentioned, the wet gets wetter and the dry gets drier to some extent. And then what we're seeing is that we have a lot more rain in the winter, and then our snowpacks are getting less and less. So in the summertime, it's also getting a lot hotter. So droughts also impact that stream flow in the summertime. If we add a beaver back into this equation, they are actually kind of combating all of those climate change effects. Again, they're reducing floods in the winter because they're holding water back and not allowing it to just flow through our streams really quickly. And in the summer, they're providing more stream flow through groundwater and through just ponds leaking through dams slowly. So beavers are really important for that aspect as well, and they increase resilience to climate change or to changes that we don't know of yet. There's some cool new papers about how beavers help with wildfires, which is also increasing because of climate change and droughts. Since there is more water available, wildfires impact beaver wetlands less, so because they're wetter, and then those areas also recover quicker for the plants to recover from the fire once it's gone through. Beaver dams also provide a really cool refuge for wildlife during wildfires. That ponded area is not going to burn, so wildlife like to retreat there and be safe from the wildfire. So this is really important, especially Eastern Washington, and they're looking at this even more. There are a couple organizations that are trying to mimic beavers and beaver dams exactly for this reason, to have less impactful wildfires and then also recover quicker if a fire does come through. Just to summarize, beavers can take a stream like this that is really incised with not a good not very much floodplain interaction, not a lot of vegetation. They can move in and reconnect that water to its floodplain, um, raise the water table, and bring back some vegetation. Again, it might be a change in vegetation because of the flood, but they wetland species are going to thrive in these type of environments. So with beavers, they can bring a stream back to life. Again, that is why organizations in Eastern Washington and also here, like the district, are trying to mimic beavers through beaver dam analogs and encourage beavers wherever we can, to restore our systems. That's kind of just a cool little graphic that I like showing to summarize the benefits. Are there any questions before we move on to management beavers?
It looks like we have a few. One question is, let's see, is that what changed the heron rookery in Kenmore?
Oh, I'm not sure. I have seen rookeries in beaver ponds before. I'm not familiar with the Kenmore one. Um, and I'm not totally, I can't tell you where herons like to create a rookery, even though I probably should know that. But again, a beaver habitat is good for herons because it's creating that waterfowl area and increasing fish and insects and that sort of thing.
And then our other question is from Elena. Where do beavers go in a wetland complex that dries up for a month or two during the summer? Will they seek out water elsewhere and potentially move back? Our wetlands has been getting either very low or dry the last few years, but we also have not had beavers on our property for many years.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so beavers do want some water to live there. Um, a lot of times beavers will move into a place where it could be dry and then they dam it up and it's wetter longer, so they'll live there. If the wetland still goes dry during the summer, they could easily move up or downstream. Some colonies will have multiple lodges. So they will have one in their primary pond, and then maybe they'll have one somewhere else that doesn't get dry. Again, they are territorial. So beavers, that is one challenge for beavers. If their pond goes dry, they may run into another beaver colony that they will not be welcomed into. But yes, I've seen beavers have multiple lodges. And that is another reason why they're so determined to build dams higher and higher, because they want that water to stay longer and longer. All
Awesome,
right.
thank you. And we have another question.
Yeah.
Are there efforts to bring beavers into areas that are in need of environmental repair?
Yeah. So we'll talk about it. One beaver management strategy is trapping, but also trapping and relocating. So there are organizations that are trying to take beavers that maybe are hard to live with and put them to places where restoration is needed, specifically in upper watersheds where water storage is really important, and where beavers can't get to as easily. Here in Western Washington, beavers have recovered a lot from being almost extinct from the fur trade. Um, and so, again, if there's water and woods, you're likely going to get a beaver to move in. But in places like Eastern Washington, where it's drier and there's less connectivity, um, beaver relocation is really important. In addition, like Idaho and Utah do a lot of beaver relocation. In Europe, which is a whole nother story, but there are also relocation efforts in Europe where beavers have not recovered as quickly. But here in Western Washington, if you restore an area with vegetation, beavers will likely eventually move in. But there are organizations trying to put them in specific locations to get the most benefit from their activities. Yeah, great questions. Happy to answer more. I appreciate the thought. I will go over to beaver management now. because that is really, I think, a reason why we're here to live with beavers. Um, so despite all those benefits, beavers obviously create some conflicts with land owners, land managers. Specifically, they will chew trees down that we might want to keep, or chew trees that become hazards for our safety. They love to block culverts because we already are constricting that stream into a small place that beavers can easily block up. And then, of course, their dams will increase water levels and create floods where there were no floods before, like your lawn, like your basement, that sort of thing. But there are solutions, which I'm here to talk to you about today and happy to help you with if you ever encounter these conflicts. Like we talked about, beaver trapping is one strategy, not a strategy that I would recommend. You can legally trap beavers on your own property. If you hire a trapper, it has to be during fur bearer season. I would never suggest this. I have occasionally recommended trapping, but with relocation. So there are a couple certified relocators in Western Washington that can trap beavers and move them to another habitat, a habitat where they are needed. There is limited, or not limited, but success is still being studied if the beavers will actually stay there when they're relocated, how well beavers handle relocation. But really the reason why I don't recommend this very often is because it's temporary. If one beaver thought that your backyard was good habitat and moved in, another beaver, again, they're dispersing every 2 years. They're trying to find new habitat. Another beaver will probably also think it's good habitat and likely move in. I've talked with landowners who have trapped for years and years, trapped hundreds of beavers, but beavers always come back. So really the long-term solution is coexistence, which there are a couple ways to coexist. First off, if a land manager, if a beaver built in an undesired location, but maybe the land manager has room somewhere else for a beaver, which is most ideal, we can remove that dam with a permit from Fish and Wildlife, and then encourage them to build somewhere else on that property. So again, we kind of talked about how people are trying to mimic beavers by doing beaver dam analogs and putting log structures in our streams. Doing this will hopefully encourage them to build there instead of that undesired location. And again, we want to encourage them to be somewhere with food, native plantings specifically. This is a strategy that I would like to try more, but again, it does require that land manager or landowner to have space for them somewhere else. Then just breaking it down into more specifically how to coexist with them without trying to move them or encourage them to build somewhere else on your property. Tree chew, again, we, especially in urban settings, we want to keep large trees that provide a lot of canopy cover, sequester a lot of carbon. Maybe we want to keep those long-lived conifers. So there are reasons to protect vegetation. Beavers' favorite foods like willows, or a lot of species that are in wetlands will actually are adapted to survive beaver harvest. So they will regrow and resprout after they're cut. But again, conifers or some non-natives, or maybe your favorite apple tree on your property cannot do that. So we want to protect it. And this is pretty easy. Tree wrapping is pretty effective. You do want to make it pretty tall because again, a beaver is like a medium-sized dog. And so we recommend fencing that is 4 feet tall. We want to wrap it around the tree, but give the tree space to grow and also not allow beavers to just chew through the mesh and get to the tree. And then we also want to secure it. We have wooden stakes here but U-posts can also be used to secure that fencing down to the ground. Beavers are really persistent and smart, so they may try to push up on a fence or crawl on top of it, type of thing. So you do want to have that fencing pretty secure. These are just some more pictures of some cool tree wrappings that we've done. A lot of trees are not dead if they've been chewed on once. You really want to evaluate if a tree is salvageable and if it's girdled or not. And then you also really want to prioritize, especially if you have a lot of trees, prioritize tree protection to those large trees that are providing a lot of canopy cover and sequestering a lot of carbon. And then also trees that are nearest to the water and most at risk to be taken by beavers. You may have like a really cool tree that is further upland. And if you have time and resources to wrap that, great. But you should really be focusing on those trees that are nearest water and that maybe are already being chewed. And then, like we talked about, where beavers are coming in and changing the environment, they're flooding dry areas. And this is okay. Again, we can provide wetland species and provide a healthy, thriving wetland environment. That's just a picture of a tree that used to not be flooded and now it is underwater. So how can we combat that? By just planting more natives. And I think we're going until 7:30, right? I think I'm running out of time, but so I'm gonna go through these relatively quickly, but I am happy to talk more with people if they apply to you or just if you're interested. Again, beavers love blocking culverts because we are already constricting that and giving them an easy place to build off of. This is bad for fish passage, and it's also bad for our infrastructure that these culverts are running under. Culvert exclusion fences are also pretty effective. They've been in practice for a while. We'll remove that dam and put in this fence. And we're really trying to increase the surface area that beavers have to dam to stop water. So we're moving the beavers further away from the constriction of water. And instead of just blocking one face of the pipe, they'd have to go all the way around our exclusion fence to stop that water. And this fence is approved by Fish and Wildlife. Actually, any dam removal or any addition to streams has to go through Fish and Wildlife through a permit called a hydraulic project approval. So these fences are approved and they are fish passable. So again, we're retaining that fish passage because instead of a beaver blocking our culvert that we've already restricted fish passage to, we're clearing that culvert and allowing fish to go through our fence. General flooding is another big issue that there is a solution. Flow devices. You may have seen pond levelers around, and those used to be in practice a lot more, but specifically in King County and Snohomish County, there are questions if that they're actually fish passable or not. So I won't go over them a ton. So we had to innovate with the beavers because beavers are always innovating and do something called a notch exclusion fence. So basically we lower that dam just as much as we need to. So let's say your yard is flooding 6 inches. And if we lowered that dam 6 inches, your lawn would be okay. We would just lower it 6 inches because we want to retain as much dam as possible to keep the beavers there, keep the beavers happy, and retain all those benefits that beaver ponds create. So we'll notch the dam and put in this fence, just like a culvert exclusion fence, that is fish passable if fish are present, and but exclude beavers. So again, we're just increasing the surface area and making it more difficult for beavers to block that notch. They are designed for fish, and again, approved by Fish and Wildlife. So the bottom is tiered downwards to the stream bottom, so fish have a pool to jump up through, and then the upstream is kind of suspended above the air because, or above the the stream bottom, so that beavers would also have to block that lower section to actually stop flow. Again, beavers are really persistent, really smart. They're always innovating along with us. So we've seen that some beavers are just small enough to fit through our fish passage mesh size. And so we continue to innovate with them or react to their smart building habits. And that just really highlights that monitoring and maintenance and adaptive management is always needed with any coexistence device, especially flow devices, because beavers, that is their livelihood to repair that notch, to increase water level. And we don't know how they're going to react. You know, it's a living stream, it's a living beaver. So even though these flow devices can work, it does require some monitoring to see how beavers react, to see how the system changes, and then to respond accordingly to those changes. That's a lot of my job is installing flow devices, but then also making sure that they continue to function as needed. Just to summarize really quickly, we got some conflicts, but we also have a lot of solutions. SCD helps with all of these solutions, including permitting. If there's funding available, we can help with installation of these. We can train you how to monitor them, and we can help you coexist with your beavers. Beavers are throughout Snohomish County. These are just some pins of spotted beavers, specifically in City of Bothell. There are a lot of beavers. So you have North Creek running through your relatively urban, but also green space city. And then this is kind of just another view of North Creek. North Creek is a shoreline of significance with fish and salmon running through it. Specifically, there are other tributaries that also have fish. And so, again, if there are water and wood, beavers are likely going to be there in Western Washington. So beavers are throughout Bothell and throughout North Creek. The district, again, serves City of Bothell and also has some restoration projects along North Creek. So we are always trying to coexist with beavers wherever we can. We provide site visits. We help with permitting. We can help get materials and installation if we have funding available and your project meets some priority requirements. But we are able to help with that. And I'm always happy to talk about how to coexist with the beaver, no matter what priority you are in. Plus so much more. SCD is a great resource for land management and conservation and native plantings. So feel free to reach out to us as much as possible. There are some other resources that we can send along. King County has some great ones. We have a good fact sheet. Washington Fish and Wildlife and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have some great documents that also go into a little more depth about beavers and living with them. I want to leave like 3 minutes for questions. But yes, thank you for listening. I really appreciate your interest in beavers and hope that I have convinced you to live with them. And I just want to say, yeah, thanks to Danny and Christy and yeah, and you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Do we have any questions? I see. Should we contact the KCD if we have questions about beavers? They live in Carnation, King County.
Yeah, so
Yes,
you're welcome.
in
Oh, go
that
ahead,
case,
sir.
probably KCD, and then I'm gonna assume Ariana, does Beavers Northwest ever work out in King County areas also?
Yes, beavers. Yes, I was going to say that. You're welcome to contact KCD. I do not believe they have a Living with Beavers program like SCD does. But you're welcome to see what suggestions they have. They may just refer you to Beavers Northwest, which is a nonprofit that does beaver coexistence throughout the greater Western Washington. But again, if you're in City of Bothell, feel free to reach out to SCD.
Awesome. Thank you to everyone who came and watched our webinar. Thank you to Christy again in the City of Bothell for having us here tonight. Um, looks like, let's see, I don't see any more questions. Do you?
Actually, I have one quick
Yeah,
question that I wrote down.
thank you.
Quickly, will a beaver rebuild its dam once you notch it, or if it's just removed but not, the place isn't filled in with any native plants or anything?
Definitely. So they are, again, that's their livelihood. So they are watching and listening for leaks in their dams. They
Mhm.
want that water level high. So that's why I didn't say you should just go and remove your dam, because beavers will likely rebuild it. Especially if you just create a small notch, they're likely to repair that overnight. So it's a lot of work, and that is why flow devices can really help with them, help keep the beavers there and not have you out every day removing that dam.
Excellent. And I had one other question. What predators does a beaver have?
Yeah. So a lot of things prey on their babies. Um Specifically bobcats, coyotes, cougars, even large birds of prey can eat baby beavers. Adult beavers are a little harder to get, as you can imagine, but they still want to be safe from those larger predators. Um, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? And Ariana, I feel so bad that you are doing this webinar tonight because I can tell you need some rest
Oh
to
no.
get healthy. So thank you so much for hanging in there. You provided a ton of great information. I'm just
Yeah, happy to
really
make it.
grateful.
Yeah. I have a little cold.
All right, Danny, any closing remarks?
Yeah, everyone's saying amazing presentation. Thank you so much. All right, awesome. Everyone seemed to enjoy it. So we'll be sending out a follow-up email with some additional Beaver resources and the link to this webinar. So keep an eye out for that. And if you can make it out to one of our Orca Recovery Day events, either in the city of Bothell or Monroe, please do so. We'd love to have you. And we hope you have a great rest of your night.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.